Thank you for tuning in to this episode of UofL's Online But Not Alone podcast. My name is Conner Mackowiak, and I'm joined today by Professor Jen Presley and Dr. Adam Coco of the University of Louisville's College of Education and Human Development. These two represent the online Bachelor and Master of Science in Sport Administration here at UofL. The topic of today's discussion is an op-ed recently written by UofL President Dr. Jerry Bradley, along with Josh Hurd and Dr. Lawrence Benz. This op-ed explored the current state of college athletics, especially with regards to the current financial and governance model. It's no surprise to fans of college athletics that rising expenses for things like coaching salaries, athletic facilities, recruiting, and NIL have all had a dramatic impact over the last few years, and it begs the question of what the future of college sports may look like. Furthermore, if changes are coming for college athletics, what might that mean for Olympic and professional athletics in the years to come? To explore these questions through the lens of sport administration, I'd like to hand things over to our two guests. Thank you all again for joining us, Dr. Adam Coco and Professor Jen Presley. If you all don't mind, please introduce yourselves, share a little bit about your experience, and a little about the online BS or MS in sport administration, respectively.
Thank you, Conner. I appreciate the introduction. My name is Jen Presley. I've been here at the University of Louisville for 14 years now. I moved here from Denver, Colorado, where I also was a faculty member. In the sport administration program here at the University of Louisville, I am the undergraduate program coordinator. I also work as the internship coordinator and do a multitude of other classes. So thank you for having me, and I also can speak to the master's degree.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Yeah, and hi, Conner. Thanks for having us. I'm Dr. Adam Coco. I am an assistant professor in our sport administration program. Been here as an assistant professor since 2020. Most of my research and teaching activities revolve around NIL and college athletics. I have served as our master's program coordinator in the past, so able to speak to that a little bit, but just be excited to be here and be able to talk about the article that you referenced and how it connects to some of the initiatives that we're undergoing in our BS and MS program.
Outstanding. Well, no, thank you all. Thank you both for being here. I promise the pleasure is mine. I guess the first question that I'll ask is, what are your initial reactions to this op-ed? I think it was a week or two ago, Dr. Bradley published that article or shared that article discussing the current state of college athletics, the sustainability or lack thereof of athletics after the last 2 or 3 years that we've seen. So, I'll hand it over to you all. What are your general reactions? What are some things that you agree with, some things you might feel differently on, just general thoughts or reaction?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that when that op-ed was published, it was certainly of interest to all of us within the sport administration program. And, I think just in general, it's really good to see people in leadership positions at the university level and the athletics department level talk about these issues. They certainly are very important issues related to both higher education and college athletics specifically. There are certainly some things that I agree with when I read that article. When we think about this structural crisis that the authors talked about, college athletics certainly exists within a structural crisis. It is a nonprofit education-based athletics model that is attempting to operate within this highly commercialized and increasingly professionalized environment. And those two things just don't really coexist very well. So there is a structural crisis happening within college athletics. I also agree with some of the suggestions that they had, such as amending the Sports Broadcasting Act to allow universities and conferences to pool together and collectively negotiate media rights as one single entity. I think that could really increase the amount of media rights revenue coming into college athletics, considering the size of the enterprise and where it sits right now relative to professional sport leagues that are able to do that type of collective bargaining when it comes to media rights. So certainly some things that I agree with there. But there's also some things that I disagreed with as I read it. When Dr. Bradley and his co-authors described the issue, it was described as a structural crisis, not mismanagement. I would say it's both of those things. So, certainly there is that structural crisis that we just talked about here. when you think about the management, specifically the financial management of college athletics, we have seen continued increases in expenses that exceed the accelerating revenues that are being generated in college athletics, with a lot of that due to increases in coaching salaries, increases in buyout clauses for coaches, increases in investment in facilities. And, just from any industry perspective, when you're spending more money consistently than you're making, that to me is indicative of some type of general structural mismanagement going on there. So I would say that there are aspects of that need to be addressed, especially since some of the changes that have happened within college athletics recently, NIL deregulation, revenue sharing. These things there have been signs of them occurring for about the last decade since the O'Bannon decision by the Supreme Court in 2016. In terms of the solutions proposed, I think that there was a lot of reliance within that article on the SCORE Act being passed and therefore Congress allocating some type of antitrust exemption to the NCAA and its member institutions in order to solve some of these problems. I would rather see a solution that involves some type of collective bargaining with athletes so that they have a meaningful voice and representation in the solution to issues such as how much revenue sharing allocation should they get, what are the rules and regulations around NIL usage, transfer mobility, eligibility rules. These are all aspects of those structural crisis that is happening within college athletics, and I think that athletes should be able to be represented in a fair way within negotiations around solving those issues. And if the NCAA and its member institutions were to receive an antitrust exemption through the SCORE Act, that would allow them to make some of these decisions unilaterally, or at least limit the amount of representative voice from athletes within those decisions. So I would suggest a different path going forward for solutioning those issues. But again, I think that it's great to see people in leadership positions at the university and athletic department level be able to comment on what's going on here and make sure that people understand that there is an issue that needs to be solved.
Yeah, you brought up two really interesting points. I think actually there's this kind of juxtaposition of these are nonprofit entities that exist in a very big money space, but also the point you made about college athletes having a voice or having a meaningful discussion at the table. I think the article actually mentions basketball and football specifically as the main revenue drivers for universities. And on the one hand, I think that's true. You look at how much money these two sports do generate for a given university, but you also think about the fact that there are dozens of different college athletics offered at any given university, and do they have the same kind of buy-in as certain programs or whatever else? But, well, let me ask you this. Do you, at least with regards to the op-ed, was there anything that you read where it's like, there's a point there but I feel a little differently, or have a different thought or insight? It's okay if you don't, but...
I think that Dr. Coco is a better person to ask about the specifics related to that.
Sure.
I agreed with, again, there's dramatic change happening in college athletics right now. There's all kinds of things that we need to think about and consider. My immediate response was, does the general population know about any of these things? So Dr. Coco mentioned the SCORE Act. Does the general population know about the SCORE Act? Does the general population know about the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961 and how those types of changes might potentially impact the future of college athletics? And to me, then understanding how do we educate both general population and our own students on how this might impact future opportunities that exist for them in the college sport landscape. I think that if we think about 10 years ago, some of the jobs that exist today, NIL is a great example. If a director, an assistant director of NIL in an athletic department, they didn't exist 10 years ago. So 4 or 5 years from now, there might be many new job opportunities that never existed that students don't even know are going to exist. So I think for me, I really look at it from that lens of what types of things are these changes potentially going to create, and what types of opportunities are our graduates going to be able to have in the future.
Well, I'd love to follow up on that because I think it raises a very interesting point about the sustainability of college athletics, both as it was, let's pretend 10 years ago, and kind of as it is now, because I think it's two very different conversations. Prior to some of these pieces of legislation that you've mentioned and some of these larger changes, including NIL. I'll even just call it like the pre-NIL era. For better or worse, it felt like college athletics really hadn't changed all that much. You might hear about this university getting a broadcasting agreement through this company, or now this school only is available through this channel, or things like that. You'd hear about that now and again, but it really didn't change all that much. But now it kind of feels like things have expedited almost exponentially. Like changes are happening faster and faster, and different agreements are happening with different schools. Athletic conferences just broke down what used to be the Pac-10 is now very different. Some of those schools are part of the Big Ten. Some of those are now part of the Big 12, and so on. The same is happening with Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more, generally speaking, do you feel like what we're seeing is sustainable, unsustainable? Do you feel like it just kind of is, and change is always just kind of a constant with things like this, or what are your thoughts?
I do think it's a pretty unsustainable environment. I think that leadership in terms of college athletics and in higher education in general are rightly concerned that the current model is unsustainable. And if things continue to progress as they are, the long-term sustainability and viability of college athletics as embedded within the higher education model is very much threatened. Not to be redundant here, but a lot of it, again, comes down to these competing ideals or logics between you have these, kind of amateurism ideals, education-based athletics, nonprofit structures that college athletics has traditionally rested on, operating within this highly commercialized, increasingly professionalized environment. And you have, as you mentioned, sports like football, men's basketball, to a certain extent women's basketball, that are generating net revenue for athletic departments, and then other sports, mainly Olympic sports, that are not generating positive net revenue. I think that those things can coexist together. It's not like we have to only focus on those net revenue producing sports and cut other sports. I would hate to see that happen, but I think it's about how to make that happen responsibly. And again, when we think about making that happen responsibly, I think that all invested parties need to have a really meaningful voice in the solutions and decisions. So that would be certainly athletic departments and higher education institutions. That would be athletes and entities that represent athletes' interests in order to find more sustainable solutions. Because it's quite obvious that any organization that continues to spend $10 million plus more than they generate in revenue year over year is just not going to be a sustainable entity. So there have been stopgaps put in place in terms of implementing student fees in order to cover some of those financial shortfalls. Some institutions or some athletic departments take on support from their institutions. We've seen government step in and give some support to athletic departments. The University of Utah has become the first one to take on some form of private capital or private equity in order to help fund their operations going forward. But these are all stopgap measures. These are not actually providing solutions to the structural crises. They're just allowing the structural crises to exist in that environment a little bit longer. So, I do very much hope and am inspired by people that want to find solutions to this. And it's something that does need to occur sooner rather than later.
The only thing I immediately think of is that you mentioned a change in the last 10 years. Again, this constant change is going to create new demand. So we have many elective options that we create sort of on the fly, omnibus type courses, where something that is happening in the industry, like NIL or like the economics of college sport, that we offer for students so that they can potentially learn these different types of things that are happening within the industry, and we offer that and provide that for the students.
Yeah, I think that's I think that is a fascinating point, because I think maybe for so many people it's really easy to appreciate, okay, things are changing kind of quick and feel like kind of a sense of dread. But to your point, I think there is absolutely opportunity to be found, let alone the new positions. I do think it creates opportunity for the students, the student athletes. I think, that was always kind of the big argument with or for NIL in the beginning anyways, these universities are not necessarily profiting, but they are bringing in revenue from college athletics. Should the athletes get a share of that, or should they be, compensated beyond scholarships or whatever else? So, I think that's a really fascinating point, is there is opportunity. It's early days yet. Perhaps the way things look now may change even more than what we can see or forecast right now. And knowing that, what will that mean? What new positions will there be? And how will college athletics continue to play a role as this, I don't want to say an in-between as far as going on to the pros or taking that next big step, but it does create a tremendous opportunity. And that actually ties into the next thing I was going to ask, which is, as sport administrators, what are some things that are top of mind when you hear about or think about the current state of college athletics?
I think that Jen hit on a couple really key points in one of her earlier responses. So, NIL managers or directors of NIL services, these were not positions that were around 5 years ago. And now every Power Four athletic department and many athletic departments outside of the Power Four conferences have those type of positions. So, when we think about what those entities or what those type of positions do, it's, I think, two main things. One is, how do you build, develop, and market a personal brand in a really authentic and responsible way? And that is a life skill that is so valuable for anyone, athletes, non-athletes, doesn't matter. Everyone should be able to have opportunities to develop a really strong and marketable personal brand. And it's great to see these positions that are now within college athletic departments in order to help athletes do that. There's also a compliance side to this. Obviously, there are some semblance of rules and regulations at the NCAA level regarding NIL that institutions need to follow. And so you need people to be able to manage that and manage athletes throughout that process. Jen also brought up the idea of kind of these general manager type of positions. And I think that they were originally called like NIL general manager positions, but they really are just kind of like general managers in the way that we would view professional sport general managers now. We do have revenue share in college athletics, of course. It's $20.5 million for this current academic year. That's going to increase throughout the next 10 years per the terms of the House settlement. You need individuals that are able to manage a salary cap, basically. How much do you allocate to different sports? What do those contracts look like? Are there ways to structure contracts so that as payments in those revenue sharing agreements continue to grow, they grow along with the cap, so that you have more true cap space in the future because of that? These are really like big opportunities for people that are going through sport administration programs, and including the ones that we have here at the University of Louisville, to position themselves as people that are able to provide that value and provide that function for athletic departments.
So I was talking to a student today, actually, who's working in kind of a graduate assistant coaching / recruiting position. And he was talking about how the transfer portal and the changes to the transfer portal have really changed his role over the course of the last year. He used to spend a lot of time, or in the last 2 years, he used to spend a lot of time sort of working with high school athletes and talking to parents and spending a lot of time in that sort of build up to college. And now with the changes to the transfer portal, they don't even need to really do that anymore, because the athletes are coming to them and they're more seasoned sort of athletes that are in their pool of athletes that they're selecting from. So he also discussed some of the changing roles within the athletic department, that he sees some of the coaches not doing nearly as much recruiting or scouting as they used to do, but now there's a director of recruiting, there's a director of scouting that maybe wasn't there in the past. So again, I think that all of these changes that are coming to college athletics are really opening up the door for more opportunity for students.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jen, because it's like you still might have to have those really interpersonal conversations with family members, but then you also have to figure out how to talk to an athlete's agent and talk about the money side of this. And so it's about having a more well-rounded and developed skill set than you did before. And again, we feel like we are a program that positions students to be able to enter those roles in ways that allow them to be really beneficial to their organizations.
I was just listening to you all talk. I was just imagining if you are a professional sport program or even a college program for that matter, the point that you all made about, in particular, managing that these students are developing and continue to develop their own personal brands. There are way more conversations that you just pointed out. Like, it's not necessarily, okay, should I go to this school or that school? It's what other considerations are there. And if I'm a team, I'm not looking to streamline that particular part of the workflow, because the team is nothing if not made up of all the different individual athletes and administrators and staff and people who support the organization accomplishing what it wants to and what it endeavors to accomplish. So I think you both just raised some really fascinating points that are worthy of further conversation and discussion, and to the point that you've both made, certainly create new opportunity for sport administrators. So with that in mind, you've already kind of touched on this, but within the next few years, what might the role of a sport administrator look like within the next 5, 10, as we start looking not just short-term, but also long-term? What does that role look like?
It's a really complicated answer for sure. I think that if anyone can tell you that they know what's going to happen within the college athletic space in the next 5 to 10 years, they are fooling you, and I would not trust them at all. I think that it is really impossible for anyone to predict, what is actually going to happen. One of the big things that I'm looking out for is the resolution to the Johnson v. NCAA case, and that is all about college athletes as employees. And as we think about all of these paradigm shifts, these revolutions to college athletics over the last 10 years, NIL deregulation, introduction of revenue sharing, this unanswered question about whether or not college athletes as employees is really kind of the next big thing to happen. And depending on the outcome of that case, that is potentially going to completely revolutionize what sport administrators need to be made aware of now. Now you have to think about how do you handle athletes as employees and all of the considerations that come along with that, employee benefits and wages that are being paid as an employee of the institution, employee contracts, and specifically athlete employee contracts are potentially going to be a large consideration for sport administrators if that were to happen. So, that's certainly one thing that I have on my radar. But in terms of, is that going to happen? What it looks like, who knows? I don't know, Jen, if you have any other things that are on your radar.
Not necessarily anything that's on my radar, but when I think about my career as a sport administration teacher, the skill sets really haven't changed. We still need students to understand how to network. We need them to understand how to be effective communicators, whether they're communicating with supervisors, whether they're communicating with athletes, whether they're communicating with other people. We need them to express leadership skills, be able to be effective leaders. We need them to understand the ethics of the athletic department or the professional sport organization. So none of the things that are changing specifically as it relates to those kind of core skills that we teach. We teach finance, law, business, leadership, policy. All those things are important, and those are the places that we're going to see a lot of change. But the core skills that students need to be effective in a career, those things haven't really changed and probably won't. I will say, because I like to use examples from my students, I did talk to some students. I got an email about it. Some students the other day who did some interviewing and didn't do very good. They weren't doing a good job communicating with the interviewer via a Zoom email or a Zoom conversation. They were wearing sweatshirts and didn't look professional, didn't sound professional, didn't act professional. Again, those are basic skills. You're not going to get hired. You're not going to move up and be able to do some of these great things that Dr. Coe was talking about if you can't grasp the basic skills. So that's how I feel as it relates to what's happening. The basic things aren't changing.
I agree. I think just to kind of summarize that is, the soft skills that you need to be good decision makers, good problem solvers, good employees of a professional or college sport organization. Those things don't change. Maybe some of the hard skills, the type of systems that you're going to use, the type of decisions you need to make are going to change. And so we are constantly adapting our curriculum to meet those. But to Professor Presley's point, those soft skills in terms of, networking and understanding your role as a leader and understanding ethics within the decision-making process, those things are not changing and will always kind of be the basis and foundation for what we do as a program.
Well, I mean, that leads perfectly into kind of this last part of the conversation, which was going to be about how the online BS and MS in sport administration prepare professionals for these challenges that are coming over the next 5, 10, and even 15 years ahead. You've already talked about some of the soft skills, but we also think about what the average online student might look like as far as they're a non-traditional student. Maybe they have some experience in the workplace, or maybe they didn't complete their degree necessarily, or they completed their undergraduate degree and they're getting ready to take that big step to get a master's. What are some things you might tell students? What are some concerns you might wish to address that they might have? So many online students, myself included, I'm doing an online program right now, and that was a concern that I had going in. It's like, it's been a while since I've done school. Can I do this? Can I handle this? What would you want to communicate to people that are thinking about an online program or considering the online BS or MS in sport administration?
Well, the first thing I would say is that we have a lot of flexibility. Of course, both our bachelor's degree and our master's degree are fully available online in a completely online format. The majority, all of our core courses are offered online, so you have the option to take all of the courses online. In addition to that, we offer a lot of electives. Almost all of our electives are also offered in an online format. So students in online classes aren't getting any real difference than the in-person students are getting. I think that we're doing good work as it relates to the types of courses. The NIL classes. Dr. Coco's developing a class for next fall, which is the economics of college athletics. So I think that the things that we offer are really valuable to potentially online students.
And I would just add that as sport administration faculty, we have really invested a lot in ensuring that we are able to teach effective online courses. I know that there are programs or online classes out there outside of this institution where if you're an online student, you might log in, see a set of PowerPoint slides there, no interactive videos, no interactive assignments. You look at the slides, you take a quiz, it's done. We don't do that. We very much ensure that we are having two-way interaction, two-way discussion with our online students in those classes, always available for follow-up discussion, follow-up meetings, I think that we really try to, as best as possible, replicate some of that interpersonal interaction that you would get in an in-person classroom, obviously in a different modality. But we've all invested a lot in terms of making our online teaching capabilities as effective and efficient as possible.
So something you asked, Conner, was what are some of the concerns that we usually hear about from potentially online students? Usually the number one concern that I hear is students concerned about the internship. So they want to know, I'm a military student, for example, and I'm overseas, and there's not going to be an opportunity for me to do an internship when I'm deployed. I think that understanding that there is a lot of flexibility, even though, yes, it's a rigid core, we have a very specific set of classes that you are required to take. We do our best to create the best opportunity for those online students. For that military student, for example, we've recently thought about how do we create this sort of boots on the ground portfolio of your experiences that you've learned internationally or that you've learned as a military deployed student, and how do we make that into applicable credit for you? So I think that things like that are easy for us to work around, and we are trying to be open-minded and do the best we can for the students that are in a situation that might not be a traditional type situation, which a lot of online students are in that place in their lives.
It's so interesting, just kind of reflecting on this conversation and having heard both of you speak, especially just with some of these ideas that you've brought up about the opportunities that are available for online students that are available through sport administration and through these changes that are happening to college athletics. It honestly was a perspective I'd not really considered before. Did either of you happen to watch the Winter Olympics that just concluded?
I dabbled.
Yes.
Did you all see the Team USA versus Canada hockey match at the very end?
Yay.
Yeah.
So something that just came to mind, I don't know how long you stuck around after we won, but Mike Tirico had this really impassioned speech, a call to action, talking about how if you are interested in sports, go ahead and get involved. Go ahead and take action. Get started, because sport brings out the very best in each and every one of us. And I was just reflecting on that, hearing some of the things that you've been saying about how, this scenario is changing, the landscape of college athletics is changing, but there is still so much opportunity. There is so much growth and so much excitement to be had about how this is evolving and what this might look like and how things might change for student athletes and then us as fans of athletics. So, I think you gave all of us plenty to think about and plenty to consider. Before we wrap up, do you all have any other thoughts, questions, comments, or anything you'd like to share about anything we've talked today, or any kind of closing thoughts?
I wasn't expecting that one. I guess just to kind of tie this back into some of the courses that we offer, I developed a NIL course in fall of 2021, right after NIL deregulation came to college athletics. So one of the first in the country that was established, and certainly has evolved and developed since then. So students that are interested in the topic, highly recommend them looking into that class. As Professor Presley alluded to, I'll also be developing a broader economic changes in college athletics course for next academic year, or we will certainly talk about NIL, but also more broadly explore the impacts of the House settlement, other changes coming to college athletics, looking how it impacts programs that are below the Power 4 level. So what's going on at Division II, Division III, NAIA, community college levels. So I guess I could add that, and I don't know, what else do you got?
The only other thing I was thinking about is the different minors that we've been really trying to work through. A lot of students are interested in sport, but they don't necessarily want to have a minor or a major in sport administration. So we have created quite a few different minors. We have a sport administration minor. We have an NIL minor now. We have a sports media minor with the communication department. We've recently created a business of college athletics minor. So there is a lot of opportunity to sort of dabble in the sport classes without fully committing to the online program or the bachelor's or the master's program if you don't want to.
Yeah. We're hosting a national sport management conference here in Louisville next February, so that's something to look forward to. We'll have scholars coming in from all across the country to be able to share their research and perspectives on topics college athletics related, professional sport related, recreational sport related, and otherwise. So we're really happy with the progress that we made and the progress that we continue to make in terms of being good voices and advocates for budding sport management professionals across the country.
What's the name of that conference?
That is the Applied Sport Management Association Conference, February 2027.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And where can people tune in to get more information about that conference?
Definitely our socials, especially starting in the fall. We released some just preliminary announcements about it recently, but in the fall we'll ramp up on our social media promoting that. And then the Applied Sport Management Association Conference Applied Sport Management Association website. I don't know exactly what that is, but if you Google it, surely it comes up.
Well, thank you all again so much for your time, and thank you to the listeners for joining us for this discussion. The University of Louisville offers over 70 online programs, which include bachelor's, master's, doctoral, and certificate programs designed to allow you to complete your degree on your schedule. There are transfer credit and scholarship opportunities available for many of our online programs so that you can save time and money on your education. If you'd like to learn more about the online bachelor's or master's in sport administration, you can click the links in the description of this episode, or you can learn more at UofL.me/OBNApod. Again, that's UofL.me/OBNApod. Thank you again to Jen and Adam for joining us, and I hope you all have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Conner.